Hey, good morning, my friend. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. We are halfway through our week. And I said on Monday Morning Cup of Joe that today's episode of After the Coffee would be something different. And in fact, it is. It's a time where I try to put my head around the concept of life. You know, Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. What does that mean? In the beginning, no, um, back in 1990, I attended a ASTD convention in Anaheim, California. And while I was there, I connected with an individual named C.W. Metcalf, and he was marketing his videotape on humor, risk, and change, and the impact that that has on us, not just in the work environment where we probably experience it the most, but in life in general, and the impact it can have on us as human beings, physiologically, psychologically, and emotionally. Pretty heavy subject, right? And then shortly thereafter, I had been researching happiness. I think a lot of us, wonder about that topic. Happiness has been a big subject title since the pandemic, maybe even before. It was for me back in 1990. Shortly thereafter, I had the opportunity to take in a lecture at Claremont College, and the lecturer was a gentleman named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He was just referred to as Mike, and he was doing research on happiness also. Extensive research, impressive research. And I learned a lot from the standpoint of it's important for us to embrace our experience of sadness and grief as much as we pursue this elusive butterfly of happiness, because it's a dichotomy. It's the yin and yang in life, that it's assured that we are going to have struggles and pain and grief. And hopefully we are present in the moment enough to recognize happiness when it is in our life. But without experiencing the pain, the question is, would we appreciate happiness as much? And I think there is a very important point there. In doing this research, I realized that there is no way that any one person is going to experience happiness 24/7 unless it is a chemically induced experience. And in that case, is it real happiness? The type of happiness that gives you fulfillment, or is it merely just the chemicals that create that happiness? Dave, why are you talking about all this stuff? Because it's important. We have to have a perspective around happiness. We certainly want to be happy, but the reality of life is that we are going to experience grief too. And in each of those, we need to fully invest ourselves in those moments, to take the time and stand back and reflect on the importance. I talk about moments. I was attending a time management seminar. It was being delivered by a gentleman named Hyrum Smith, who was the founder of Franklin Quest prior to Stephen Covey's joining the organization and making it Franklin Covey. And he said, never pass up the opportunity to let people know how much you care. Those are fleeting moments. And if we brush them off, we may regret it. And being the studious researcher that I was at the time, he said, do we even know what time is? Certainly, if we ask somebody what time it is, we look at our cell phone or our wristwatch and we tell them. what time it is. But if we change that question just slightly and ask time, what is it? This thing that drives every second of our lives now becomes, ambiguous. We think we know, but when asked to define time, clearly we know not. St. Augustine. And we think about time in terms of it being the currency of life, right? Life is the time that fills between our birth and our transitioning onto the next plane, which I like to think of it as that, right? And that continuum is filled with time. This is why we say, how are you spending your time? You see time as a currency of life, which is not unlimited. And this thought should give us a sense of urgency that we don't know how much time we have. And that's probably a good thing, because we'd freak out if we knew the exact moment of our death. So what do? Gosh, let's not squander this precious currency called time. But how do we spend it? How do we spend it in a way which is fulfilling to not just ourselves, but those around us? That is the big question, isn't it? That is what matters most, is to take a look at, believe it or not, going back to the effectiveness model, what our vision is, how a future state that we want to be involved in, occupied with, that is a passion, a love, and something that gives us that feeling that life is worth living, because it certainly is. And then, of course, our mission, our vision, mission, values, our all that stuff. That's more than just a model. It's a blueprint for our life. It's what makes meaning happen. And if you feel empty, oftentimes it can be a life that has strayed from meaning, true meaning. So we talk about being in the moment. We are constantly busy throughout the day at work, one thing after another, and some things that were not even planned show up on our plates, and it becomes even more chaotic. And then, at home, we have chores and tasks that we need to accomplish, and we get caught up in the day. Sometimes we get to the point where it's time to go to bed, and we're like, where did the time go? Which is another interesting concept. When we talk about our perception of time, a gentleman named Stephen Kotler, he is the founder of the Flow Research Collective, and we talk about the neuroscience of time. Isn't it interesting that when we're with friends and we're having a good time, what do we say? Time flies when we're having fun. It goes very fast. Or if you have children, the amount of time that goes by, and they grow up and they graduate from high school and they get married and they go to college, or maybe not in that order, but time flies. Or maybe you've had the unfortunate experience of being in an automobile accident where things actually slowed down. You were very, very conscious and aware of all the things that were happening around you, but they were happening in slow motion, when in reality, we know it was in a split second. The mind's perception of time is extremely interesting, and something that I've been spending the last 3, 4, 5 years researching. I'm fascinated by it. We talk about the chemical cocktail in our brain that controls us, and we didn't get a user manual for this thing between our ears. But if we could create a user's manual, what impact that would have on how we spend the most critical currency of our life, and that's time. I'm not going to spend this entire time. Actually, this is going to be a shorter episode than normal. But I want to leave you with something that when it comes to time management, don't think of it as the clock on the wall. It's not about the hands on the clock. It's about accomplishing events that matter most to you. So time management essentially is about event control. When we have control of our events, control is huge to happiness, by the way. The more in control we are, the happier we are, or the more content, at least, that we are. It is when our life is chaos and we feel a lack of control, or perhaps even in some cases, no control, that we feel very little happiness, right? I wanted to leave you with these thoughts. I want you to be mindful of these natural laws that govern our lives. Think about them deeply. Think about what matters most to you. And I know that money sometimes gets in the way. It's like, oh, I'd love to be able to spend, all my available time or all my time with, people I love and etc. But I have to earn a living and I have to do this and I have to do that. Challenge those things. Yes, we have to earn a living. I get it. We all have to eat and have a roof over our head and clothes, food, right? The basic needs. But there's a lot of spare time. There's a lot of time that we spend surfing the internet, a lot of time that we spend doing things that are not of value. And if we knew for a fact that time was going to end for us very soon, how would that shift and change our priorities and our behavior? Something to think about. Look, I love models. Don't get me wrong. But there are deeper questions in life that we have to ask ourselves, that if we go through life without taking the time to think about them, maybe not answer them, but think about them, I can't help but think the quality and value of our life is somewhat diminished. I want you to think about that. When you are on the job, which you more than likely are today and through Friday, the weekend is near. How much time do we spend being present with those with whom we work with? Taking the time to be able to step back at a situation and say, I really appreciate you, and be genuine about it. So, without my team, we would not be able to accomplish the goals that we have accomplished. And, the teams that struggle the hardest together often create a bond that makes them a stronger team on the other side. All right, that's enough of that. I will see you Monday, where we will be talking on another subject. I don't know yet. I have several on my desk, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to cover next. But please do me a favor in the comments area down below. What fulfills your life right now? What is most important to you? If you were to look back on your life and say, this was my greatest accomplishment. In the meantime, lead well, my friend. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Monday Morning Cup of Joe.